FreshPod is created for industry professionals and is intended for educational purposes only. This content is not designed for patients or consumers.
But there's one patient that particularly comes to mind. She had come to me for years actually for anti-wrinkle services or biostimulators. And sometimes we weren't, getting the results that she was really happy with. Her skin quality was not ideal, and we were working on that, building up the collagen. She was also not having a great time at work. She was irritable. She was tired. She wasn't sleeping well. She had the brain fog. She had some tension with her husband, and she just didn't feel like herself. I got her onto a women's health consultation, and we had a chat with one of the practitioners. The practitioner said to me, "Can you feel her traps for me?" And so I had a feel, and I was like, yeah, she feels tight there. And she's like, well, can you provide some support for that? Can you, relax those traps for me? And I said, sure, we can do that. And then feel the masseters. Can you do something for that? The patient was also struggling with hair loss, and the practitioner identified the type of hair loss instantly. And we referred to my dermal therapist for some exosomes, microneedling, those type of services. Then the patient started to engage in microneedling on her face because she noticed the results were so amazing. And then she engaged with our skincare. This patient, from an internal point of view, as well as an external point of view, now feels like a new person. She just feels like herself again. She's got adult children who she feels more engaged with their lives. She's happy with her husband, and now she's just so much happier at work. So for me, that feels good. For the business, it's good. She's expanded into other services, but most of all, that she's happy.
Welcome to FreshPod, the podcast for healthcare professionals building strong, sustainable businesses. I'm Loz McGlynn, and as always, I'm joined by co-host of FreshPod and co-founder of Fresh Clinics, Dr. John Delaney.
Hi Loz, hi everyone. I'm Dr. John Delaney, medical doctor and co-founder of Fresh Clinics. At Fresh, we're passionate about helping healthcare practitioners build clinics that combine clinical excellence with strong, future-focused business foundations.
The aesthetic industry has never stood still, and right now we're experiencing another shift. Conversations are moving beyond purely aesthetic outcomes and into health optimization, preventative care, and longevity medicine. Patients aren't just asking for support in how they look, they're talking more about how they feel and want to learn how they can stay well for longer too.
Hybrid healthcare models are making that evolution possible. Clinics are expanding thoughtfully, integrating women's health, weight management, and broader wellness conversations into their existing aesthetic frameworks. But growth like this requires intention, structure, and confidence.
Today, we're joined by Carly Heckendorf, who has evolved her clinic, Porcelain Skin, from a traditional aesthetic model into a more holistic, hybrid healthcare approach. She's sharing what sparked the shift, what changed first, and what it really takes to evolve your clinic in a sustainable way. Let's get into it. Carly, take us back to the beginning of when you first opened your clinic, Porcelain Skin. What did it look like when you first started, and what were you primarily offering?
Yeah, so I started Porcelain Skin about 3 years ago, and it was very aesthetics focused. So a patient came in, they are noticing more of a frown line, and I helped them achieve with some anti-wrinkle softening of those lines. And that was the focus. It was results driven. I wanted to get the best results physically that I could for that patient. So yeah, we had anti-wrinkle, we had dermal fillers, and we had biostimulators were the main thing. I was kind of the accountant. I was the social media person. I did all the hats back then. It was just me. But I love that. I love that stage of it. But I'm enjoying where I'm going into now.
Yeah, like a bit of a discovery phase and just like that business side as well. It's like not just what you're treating your patients with, but also understanding the business fundamentals and operations and stuff. Yeah.
There's always stuff to learn, and I think humans get a bit of bored of repeating the same thing all the time. So I think it's nice to always be learning and improving things for your patients.
Yeah.
What was your nursing career prior to then? Where were you at that point in your nursing career?
So my background in nursing is dermatology and emergency nursing. I guess from that, like a lot of nurses, have a curious mind about how things work. And when a patient comes into me and saying, like, I just don't feel like myself, I'm like, why? More than just the frown line, like, why aren't you feeling yourself? Let's dive a little bit deeper. And so I do ask a lot of questions of my patients, and that's where I found that Fresh Health has really aligned with my business.
Yeah, and there is, I mean, I come from that emergency background as well, and it's never one system. It's everything that you are looking at all at once. And from a nursing perspective as well, that team-based care that we all engage in medicine, but in the emergency department in particular, there's a lot of curiosity there. There's a lot of multi-system sort of care, and nurses in the emergency department have a great deal of skills and a variety of different body systems, so that curiosity remains.
Absolutely. And the problem solving, I think, too, because when a patient hits triage, we want to work out the problem, don't we? And want to sort of um, go through the systems and work out like what's happening. And same with dermatology. I find like someone comes in with rosacea. What's inflamed in their body? Why are we seeing this present through their skin?
And did you feel that even before Fresh Health and all that sort of stuff, did you feel that you were coming up against those boundaries within your aesthetic practice? You wanted to know more, go deeper, help the patient more. Was that something you'd naturally found in your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. Because patients were coming with the problems. They were naturally telling me that they didn't feel like themselves. There was something that they couldn't put words to describe, but they were telling me that they weren't sleeping well. They had brain fog. Their body systems just weren't working like they did in their 20s and 30s. And similarly, I was going through the same transitions myself. So I understood where they were coming from, and I didn't have the answers yet myself until I learned about Fresh Health. Um, and often the thing is now they come in and say, "Oh, you look really well," and it's a natural transition into, "Well, I've commenced on hormonal therapy and weight loss medication." So yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting time where the emergence of access to really reliable information has become so much better and easier. Podcasts is a great example, where not this just this one, but you could listen to a world-renowned expert in menopause and perimenopause, and they might be platformed on a really accessible, popular podcast in Australia or the UK or US or whatever. That means that people are now much more informed and much more curious about solving these problems, that those conversations can naturally then lead to those sort of questions, right? People can feel those symptoms and be curious about what's next. And it's lovely to be able to be in a position where you can provide some of that support.
100%. I have a lot of patients who come in very educated about it, but the practitioner they may have already seen um, is dismissive, maybe due to lack of education, maybe due to lack of time. But the patient is so well informed that they know that there's help available.
We hear all the time, like we speak to countless fresh members, patients, healthcare professionals in general who are well aesthetic business owners who have countless examples of patients because of the trust that is built. Like you said just before, they're sort of divulging so much more than just what their aesthetic concern is, because it's such a safe place to have those conversations. And so people like yourself are perfectly positioned to then have those deeper conversations and then connect them with the right support and treatment like journeys. We had a really great conversation with Dr. Izzy last year, one of our women's health practitioners under Fresh Health, and she spoke about an index patient that was like the catalyst for her to sort of go on her trajectory of what she does now. Is there a particular patient or experience or catalyst that you had that you were like, okay, no, I'm actually going to start looking at adopting something like this in my business?
I guess I was the first patient because I wanted to feel like I knew what I was talking about. Um, and then from every consultation on, when I knew that it was right for my business, I learned something new. That made me a more knowledgeable nurse, being able to identify, signs and symptoms. But there's one patient that particularly comes to mind, which was a great outcome for her, but also a great outcome for my practice in general. So this patient was, say, late 40s. She had come to me for years actually for anti-wrinkle services or biostimulators. And sometimes we weren't, getting the results that she was really happy with. Her skin quality was not ideal, and we were working on that, building up the collagen. She was also not having a great time at work. She was irritable. She was tired. She wasn't sleeping well. She had the brain fog. She had some tension with her husband, and she just didn't feel like herself. So I got her onto a women's health consultation, and we had a chat with one of the practitioners. And the practitioner said to me, "Can you feel her traps for me?" And so I had a feel, and I was like, "Yeah, she feels tight there." And she's like, "Well, can you provide some support for that? Can you, relax those traps for me?" And I said, "Sure, we can do that." And then feel the masseters. Can you do something for that? The patient was also struggling with hair loss, and the practitioner identified the type of hair loss instantly. And we referred to my dermal therapist for some exosomes, microneedling, those type of services. Then the patient started to engage in microneedling on her face because she noticed the results were so amazing. And then she engaged with our skincare. This patient, from an internal point of view, as well as an external point of view, now feels like a new person. She just feels like herself again. She's got adult children who she feels more engaged with their lives. She's happy with her husband, and now she's just so much happier at work. So for me, that feels good. For the business, it's good. She's expanded into other services, but most of all, that she's happy.
Yeah, and there's an integrity in healthcare that you get back to a real core of helping someone meaningfully to impact their lives. And that intersects nicely with the business and the commerciality and all that sort of stuff. But we're healthcare professionals. Like y- we got into it for the meaning and the purpose, and that's a beautiful story that that helps expand that point. Do you find then that the internal wellness, as you described, that helps with the aesthetic treatments as well? Do you find that people get a better result?
I find that patients, if they're optimized internally, they're going to do better with their aesthetic treatment. So I find that in particular with biostimulators, but not just that. When you're doing your anti wrinkle, if their skin's not behaving in a nice, bouncy mattress way that it used to, I feel if they're not hormonally optimized, then we're not going to get the result that we're looking for. I find that without estrogen, we can't create collagen. So I always use the analogy of a bouncy mattress to my patients, and I say, um, we're trying to achieve this bouncy mattress. When your skin becomes thinner, it becomes less robust and more fragile. And we want to help you create that long term good skin because, firstly, your anti wrinkle is going to last longer. Secondly, your biostimulator is going to last longer. And you're just going to feel fresher generally in your skin and age better. So I recommend these patients have a consultation with one of our women's health practitioners so that they can get optimized with their hormones and their wellness so that they can get their skin looking the best that they can.
Yeah, and I love the the phrase you used in there, which is so important, which is long term. We're not looking for short term benefits that burn out, and so then the patient is left feeling a little bit shortchanged and maybe wondering if this is good value for them or a course of therapy that they should continue to engage with. If you in this therapeutic relationship that you build with your patients over time do look to achieve their long-term goals, just like you've correctly identified, looking to improve their internal wellness, looking to have that just bursting out of themselves in sort of that positivity and that glow, complementing that with appropriate therapies, that's going to achieve those long-term benefits for anyone's clinic. That's going to set them up for sustainable success over the long term.
Absolutely.
The other thing you were just talking about is It's like having a deeper understanding of how your aesthetic treatments are like impacted through hormones and internal wellness. Traditionally in aesthetics, like just in my experience working in the industry, we've always spoken about anatomy and aging, but just from like more of like a pragmatic point of view, like what's actually changing to the face as people are aging, and then how do we address those concerns. Whereas now it's like this whole deeper understanding and appreciation for the impact that those treatments can have by you learning more around what's happening to the person holistically. How did this learning journey impact the way that you looked at your aesthetic clinic from that whole person care perspective?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I needed to learn was the symptoms of hormone decline and metabolic health. So I learned that the progesterone loss is happens early on in perimenopause, and we see symptoms of irritability, decreased sleep, and that's the first questions I ask my patients because they're the big hitters and they're the first ones to change. And then I feel like if someone's not sleeping well, they're not going to be optimized in terms of healing. So if we did an aesthetic treatment, for example, a big one like a CO2 laser, how are they going to heal well if they're not sleeping and their nutrition isn't good and they're not getting optimized in terms of their wellness?
Yeah, and also, their mental state as well. If you put someone through a painful procedure, that's going to create skin irritation, and they're already feeling down upon themselves or not sleeping well. That's really impactful, and they're not going to be feeling good after those sorts of interventions.
Absolutely. Yeah. If we can help them feel better from a mental health point of view, they're also going to be a bit less fussy about what they see in the mirror. They're going to feel more um, happy to be alive, I guess, and be less critical.
Yeah, and it's that shift in the industry um, from uh, assisting people to achieve external validation of themselves. I look a certain way, therefore I am happy, and more that internal validation of I feel good. I feel good about myself, and that means I'm going to do my hair in a certain way, and I'm going to wear my makeup, and I'm going to, enjoy some aesthetic treatments and so on. But it's coming from within, right? It's that internal glow and motivation. That's hopefully what we're trying to facilitate.
There's only so much injectables that you can do for someone to make them feel happy.
Yeah, yeah, it dips off pretty quickly.
Definitely, definitely. And you don't want to make your patients look unusual. And we just need to be realistic in what we can do for patients and not overtreat patients. But if we've got another service that we can offer to make them feel good, I think that's really good.
So when the evolution of your practice started to happen, practically speaking, once you decided that you wanted to help your patients in this broader way, in this potentially more meaningful way, what are the nuts and bolts of it from a business operations level? Like, how do you start to let people know that these things are available through your clinic? How do you ensure that you've got the right consent forms and follow up and the sorts of practical clinical operations things that come with expanding your suite of services that you offer? Could you walk us through a little bit of that, please?
Sure. So I think the most important part for me at the beginning was starting with educating my team. So I needed to educate them on how to identify a good candidate for these sort of consultations, as well as how to go about booking them in. We designed a template how to run a consultation. So when a patient comes in, we have 15 minutes allocated for them beforehand. We have half an hour allocated for the consultation with the practitioner, and then 15 minutes at the end to go through everything that was spoken about and what the next steps are. Because what we found was that patients got quite a lot of information in that 20 minutes to half an hour. And we really needed to spend that 15 minutes going through it with them, as well as booking their next appointment in. So that was the main thing, is the education of the team about how to run it, as well as how to book the consultations in. Um, how do we get patients aware of what we did? The biggest thing for us was putting it on our intake forms. Um, and I felt like that was a really nice, gentle way because in the early days, I would bring it up in a consultation without being on intake form. And I feel like patients just felt it was a little bit abrupt or didn't give them time beforehand to think.
They hadn't been warmed up to the idea.
Yeah. And you might say to them, do you have any of this symptom? And like automatically they just say, oh no. And you're like, okay, but if they've had time to think about it, maybe they have actually do have that symptom. But I know myself, if someone asks me a question about a symptom, I sort of automatically go, oh no. And then actually, yeah, maybe I do.
Especially if in their mind, they're like, I'm just here for some talks, like,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. What are you asking me about that for? So if we ask it in the consultation and we say it's something like, sorry, in intake form, and we say it's something like, women generally in their 40s and 50s may start to feel some of these symptoms. And would you like to talk about this in your consultation today? It gives me permission to bring it up, and then I know that they feel comfortable to talk about it.
do you have an online form or is it a hard copy? Yeah.
It's an online form, but I feel like for clinics that don't have an online form, putting it in the waiting room where they've had time to visualize it and think about it. Do I have those symptoms? Is it something I want to talk to this practitioner about? Do I feel comfortable? Gives them patient time to warm up, as you said, John.
Yeah. And for Fresh Health on that side of things, there's a lot of resources that we have available to people to help implement those sorts of things in their clinic. If you're feeling, a little bit anxious about implementing changes such as that, we can help streamline that process.
The Fresh Health Hub, absolute game changer. I went through the Fresh Health Hub with my staff just to show them the resources that are available, but as well the escalation that's there. So if we have a patient that needs some more support, we can go there and see, well, what do we need to do next? Do we need to contact the practitioner? Is it something we can handle? Where do we go?
Yeah. And introducing warming the patient up to the concept before the consultation room is such a great idea. So they're already primed for it. It's already in their mind. And do you find resistance then from people, or are people sort of relieved to start talking about it? What's the general vibe in the consultation room?
Sure. So you've got two types of patients. You've got your new patients and your old patients. The old patients, their symptoms because they've told you everything before. They've told you, I'm just so irritable with my kids. And so it's easier to bring up. And I feel like those patients know you already so well that they're really happy to talk about it. The patient for the first time, I feel like is a little bit harder to warm them up, but I still never have any problem, especially if they want to engage. I don't think, definitely not every conversation I have about fresh health has led to a consultation, but I do know that if I have a conversation with them, they might know someone who can then benefit from the services we offer.
Yeah, and nor should it lead to a consultation every time, right? I mean, this is medicine that's not indicated for everybody all the time, and so that's entirely appropriate. I just love the transition that you're making, and that so many other people are making in this industry away from aesthetic clinic, cosmetic clinic to a health hub, a place for people to come and explore some of these proactive health options, and particularly female centric, helping other women achieve great personal outcomes for their health and well-being. That to me is such a positive thing.
And not only for now, John, but also for their future health. We know that, if we get the patient engaged with consultations with a women's health specialist, that they're more likely to go on to have long-term health benefits in terms of osteoporosis, cardiovascular risk, and dementia risk. And a lot of patients come into me, they're in that sandwich generation, right, where they've got young kids, elderly parents, and they're scared of getting osteoporosis. They're scared of dementia. So talking about those things with your patients and then saying, well, I can get you talking to a specialist, someone who specializes in this field, who knows the intricacies of what you're going through. I can get you a consultation with them, and we can run through the risks and side effects and if you're appropriate for treatment.
And the same applies for weight management as well. I mean, that's not exclusively for women's health. Obesity is attributable to 4 out of the 6 national health priorities. And people in stories from other practitioners, have found a new way to engage with their kids in terms of physicality. They're able to ride the bike and go for a walk and so on. And the physical effort that sometimes parenting takes, being a carer takes, looking after elderly parents, that is transformed when people are able to move more freely.
And how satisfying as a clinician that you have been able to help that patient access that care. I do see a lot of patients who've seen a practitioner, had blood tests, and nothing's wrong with them, and they still don't feel like themselves. And the fact that I can then get them to a point where they can talk to a practitioner who can validate their feelings and help them get on the journey to wellness makes me feel good.
Yeah. I like what you said before too around like, I mean, every patient is so different, their experience is different, where they are in their journey with you in the clinic is very different, and there's many different ways that you can bring up these services that are now available, and whether that be like the intake form's a great one, but it's just about like just providing that education, just starting by telling people, because it might not happen immediately in that consultation that you're having with them, but it might happen in a couple of months' time. And that rings true in the aesthetic space just as much as the, whole person care space. I've spoken to a Fresh Health member who they've started just providing patient brochures to take home to their friends and family, because everybody knows somebody who is going through perimenopause, menopause, somebody who is, going through weight management. Like, yeah, they're on a weight management journey. So I do love that it's just about starting. For yourself, Carly, starting for you, did you have any hesitations or reservations on how that was going to look like in your clinic, and where you were going to start?
Yeah, definitely. I had a concern. My major concern was probably around value perception. Were my patients going to be happy to pay the consultation fee for that service? Um, and I quickly found that they absolutely were. Um, my experience with Fresh Health, as well as their experience with Fresh Health, made them happy to re-engage. Even like everyone that I've had through is like, that service is well worth that cost. Um, so $350 for a women's health consultation really isn't a lot in the eyes of my patients and myself.
And relative to the market, I think the consultations I've seen can be north of $500, and waiting times can be months. And so to have that service available at a practice that's a beautiful space that people are already coming to anyway, it just seems to be able to stack that value up for the patient.
Yeah, definitely. And they already are talking to us about their concerns. So they feel comfortable already, which is the big thing. And I like it that they feel comfortable in our space.
If this episode has you thinking about expanding your clinic beyond traditional aesthetics, Fresh Health was designed to support exactly that. Many aesthetic nurses are already having deeper conversations about hormones, weight, fatigue, and overall well-being, but don't always have the structure or clinical support to take it further. Fresh Health is Fresh Clinic's hybrid healthcare platform, supporting aesthetic clinics to integrate whole person care into their offering safely and compliantly. From medical oversight and structured prescribing pathways to training and business frameworks, Fresh Health allows you to broaden your scope without overcomplicating your clinic. If you'd like to learn more about how Fresh Health supports clinics stepping into hybrid healthcare, visit freshclinics.com.au and explore Fresh Health.
Have you changed any of your booking systems or your patient flow to incorporate all this? Like, do you still use the same iPad? Did you have to get any new devices? How are you utilizing your space with this?
We haven't really needed to change much. Like our CRM, we just had to add a service in. And the patient, generally, patients don't book that without coming and seeing us first. If they did, we'd call them and make sure they're appropriate. But in terms of the time, we always have an hour for our first consultation. So that allows us that time to dive a little bit deeper and be curious about why patients are feeling this way. And we've always had that. So we've always had these deep conversations at the beginning. So that hasn't changed. What has changed is where we fit these consultations in. So they're not urgent consultations, they're not urgent medical condition. So if a patient has to wait a week or two until there's a space in our day of an hour, we're improving our utilization of our services. Um, and patients are happy to wait that amount of time, especially if they're going to be listened to and heard from an evidence-based practitioner. So I haven't really changed a lot. It's just aligned with the way that our practice already works.
And are you finding in the time that you've been there that patients are coming back more frequently because they're engaged in another service within your practice?
Absolutely. So the patient I talked about before, with who the practitioner recommended her have some relaxing of her muscles in a trapezius and a masseter muscles. She came in for that appointment, and then she came in for her hair appointment. So she was visiting very frequently. And of course, these patients need follow up. So they're coming back in to have their follow up appointments. So if you look at our retention rate from pre Fresh Health to now, it's increased, yes.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
It's interesting because sometimes patients can come in for more of like a one-off transactional treatment. Like if it was like, oh, I just, want a, anti-wrinkle, and that can be, you see them once and then you may or may not see them in 3 to 4 months. Um, you speak about retention, but has that naturally turned into this long-term treatment journey that your patients are now starting to go on because one thing is leading to another, treating it as something else? Like how has that looked like for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like patients are coming back more frequently because they understand now the drivers behind their skin. So they understand that to um, optimize hormones means that they're going to get better skin results. So then they're more likely to engage in that. And once I've had the talk about collagen production and how we're going to get them that long term improvement, then they're going to engage more. They're going to come back because they want that long term improvement. I never felt like a that my clinic's been like a chain clinic model that patients come in for one service and then never return. And I put that down to, my nurse said to me the other day, we put that down to the long consultation at the beginning and going through everything with them. They seem to really engage in that appointment because you've got the time and you're not rushed. And then they're more likely to come back because you've gone through everything in such good detail that they know what's next. They know the step and the plan.
And that's such a luxury in healthcare, right? Like, you've been able to invest that time with them. They've also likewise invested that time with you. That's a relationship you both now put value on. It's much more likely you're going to see that patient again and going to be able to solve their problems better.
Absolutely. And as we know, we get better outcomes when they come more regularly.
Yeah. One other aspect of the integration of this broadened scope of service delivery into your practice that I'm curious about is marketing. Have you been attracting new patients with these services, or has that not bubbled up yet?
I don't feel like it's bubbled up hugely, but in saying that, the patients that I've initially had are from my current patients, my current database. But these patients have referred out to their friends and family. So I haven't done a lot of marketing on it, but I had a patient the other day come from country New South Wales, 6 hour drive for a consultation with a fresh health practitioner, um, which actually, in the long run, I'm hoping that these patients don't need to. I feel like the nurses in this space, working in this space in the country New South Wales, are really privileged to have this service. And I feel like this type of patient should not need to drive 6 hours to see someone that will validate their concerns, be able to help with evidence based treatments, um, because there's nothing else around where she feels like she can get that help.
So we speak to the regulators from time to time and the government, and that's a big part of our campaign with them is to say it shouldn't be easier to get anti-wrinkle medication than it is to get menopause and perimenopause care in a country town. At the moment, that is the case. the distributed network of hardworking healthcare professionals that work in aesthetics is actually an amazing network of care that can be provided, in all of these areas. So yeah, totally agree with you. I think it should be a extremely valuable addition to the healthcare that's able to be provided out of clinics in rural and regional Australia.
Definitely. And the nurses that I've talked to who do provide this service in their communities have really felt amazing because of the work they're doing for their communities. And I think that's awesome.
We've got an amazing community of Fresh Health members who we often see in the communication channels referring each other, like in different areas, whether it be exactly to your point, a family member might live in a different state, and then everyone's sort of like, there's a bit of camaraderie just in supporting each other and your patients, which has been amazing for us from a Fresh perspective to watch as well.
So, if a patient having to drive 6 hours to get a consultation with a practitioner, then I'll definitely do it. And in this point, I did put it out there on the WhatsApp chat, and no one in the particular area had any services set up just yet. But I'm sure going forward that that will change, and I hope it does.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes to the need of this kind of service for people and the willingness that patients have to see somebody that they trust that can give them what they're looking for.
Yeah, there's a desperation there, isn't there? Yeah.
What's worked really well? Like, Carly, you've spoken about a couple of different things that you may have changed, not actually changed because it was already within sort of your model. But is there anything that you've noticed work exceptionally well when you've adopted these new services into your clinic? Like, anything that stands out?
Two things stand out. The fact that my patients are feeling better. So when they come in, they're so thankful for me for connecting them to the practitioner. And the second thing is, I started a new nurse 6 months ago, and now she's booked out because she's got women's health services, weight loss consultations, fit into all the spaces where she didn't have before. So much so that we are considering bringing on a Fresh Health nurse just to work within the practice because the demand's so high. So what Fresh Health are doing for my community is amazing.
It sounds like you've done such a great job in interconnecting into your other services within the clinic as well. So you sometimes clinics can operate not in silos, but skin therapists might be focusing on skin, and then aesthetics might just be doing aesthetics. It sounds like you've got this beautiful synergy across all of the services that you offer in your clinic too, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's down to educating the staff about what we're doing, what we're bringing in. And even though it's a dermal therapist and she's not doing any consultations, she also is engaging with the patients that I'm seeing from an aesthetics point of view and wellness point of view. So she needs to be on board about these patients. She needs to understand where their wellness journey is going.
What about for someone listening, Carly, who is interested in expanding their suite of services and they're inspired by the story you're telling? How do they start? What's the first step for them? In your mind, what would be the first thing you would tell them to do?
Yeah. I definitely tell someone who's interested in getting into women's health or weight loss consultations, I would tell them to be curious about their patients, ask more questions, dive deeper if it feels comfortable. I'd also try an electronic intake form so that patients are aware of your service beforehand. And then to get really comfortable with the topic, I would say dive into the Fresh Hub so that you've got all the information that is available to you in terms of learning the signs, symptoms, and recognizing a good quality patient that would benefit from the services.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of really valuable education resources available in that Fresh Health Hub. So a big thanks for that shout out. But yeah, just to validate that as well, that's been heavily vetted and worked upon by experts in the field.
What I'd also say is that it's a great thing to integrate into your practice because it doesn't cost you a lot. You don't have a new device cost where you're paying it off for years and years, which can be really daunting. So no setup cost makes it really attractive.
Don't have to hold any inventory. Yeah, absolutely.
Does it, I know it's only been a short period of time since like this has sort of been within your clinic, but do you think it also will influence future decisions around what new treatments and services that you adopt into your clinic. We know that the industry is forever evolving. There's so many new products always coming into the market, new modalities, and that can be quite daunting. Do you think this is giving you a little bit more of a clear direction in the future of your business as well?
In the industry generally, we're seeing a shift towards regenerative aesthetics. I think culturally, to complement that, we're seeing a shift in how patients are thinking about their bodies and how they want to feel. I think those two go really well together. So for me, I would love to continue down the track of wellness. And that goes hand in hand with the Fresh Health consults because the practitioners that we work with are very holistic and they are looking at not just prescriptions. They're looking at how can we optimize your body with supplements, suggestions of hyperbaric treatments. There's all different modalities that we can improve our health with, and I think people are looking for that, especially in my community. They're looking at ways to improve the cellular function rather than just the external look of how they are.
Yeah, yeah, and it's this emergence of a desire for healthcare that goes beyond just fixing me when I become unwell to optimizing me for the long term. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I see the same trends and for us, dis- despite technology advancing as quickly as it is, there's still an intrinsic value that needs to be delivered. There's still an intrinsic care that needs to be delivered in person by a healthcare professional, and you couple that with what the aesthetics industry has done over the couple of decades that it's been flourishing in Australia, which is transform healthcare delivery spaces to be really beautiful spaces. So, your clinic, Carly, a beautiful space, invested in making it look and feel a certain way. And that is a different consumer experience as a patient. And so if I'm coming to proactively optimize my healthcare and I'm paying for it, I want that to be delivered in person by a healthcare practitioner who knows what they're talking about and cares about me. And I want to feel like it's in a nice spot. And I think there's a really amazing combination of those two things that's happening in our industry at the moment. I'm assuming you're still running your clinic and enjoying looking after patients in 5 years' time, maybe 10. What does that look like? How is care delivered? What's the scope of the care? Does the patient mix change in your view? Is technology helping, and if so, how? I mean, that's a big multi-part question, but just, what's your crystal ball tell you about the next 5 years?
I see it evolving massively and I see it only getting better. I see that patients will want, yeah, more tech, I think. They want to know about their biometrics. They want to understand what's going on in their body. And the tech's there right now. And I'm sure it's going to come in a way that we can use it in our clinic to monitor patients' health and wellness and make sure that they're, you know, not looking down disease pathways, stopping it before it gets there. And I think that's different from the traditional model of medicine, which sounds so great to me because we've all worked in the sickness model in the hospitals. And I love that we can start before disease progresses.
And the sickest model's not going anywhere, to be clear. People are still going to rely heavily on the wonderful healthcare practitioners who work in general practice and the hospital and outpatient clinics and all of those aspects of medicine and nursing care delivery and allied healthcare delivery that are still critical to the functioning of our society and the extension of high quality life years. I think what's emerging now and what is, seems to have a lot of energy behind it is, okay, that's great, but what else can we do? Particularly in this new age of increasing information, democratization of that information, and the emergence of these care delivery centers. What used to be called cosmetic clinics or aesthetic clinics, but these proactive healthcare delivery centers that are beautiful spaces that can help optimize individual care for people, and they're connected through technology to really great practitioners who can provide expert care at the time that's needed. So yeah, no, I share a really optimistic view about that with you.
Right. And yeah, and again, touching on the rural and remote nurses, the fact that a rural patient doesn't need to have less access to care. So if we can improve that for our rural and remote, I'd feel like that would be an amazing achievement.
Yeah, I mean, longevity medicine shouldn't be the privilege of those who live near a longevity practitioner, right? We can connect people really easily, and for me, the sort of the point I'll add to that, sort of, I won't hammer it too much, but there is a spectrum of care delivery that has emerged with technology that goes all the way from, you go to a clinic, a GP clinic, and you see a GP in person, to 100% online telehealth delivery. And neither of those things are wrong for the appropriate situation. But in the middle, I think there is a hybrid ground where you still have a beautiful space and a lovely practitioner who cares about you and knows their stuff. And that's also then connected to the telehealth component. And maybe there's a little bit that's delivered in your home as well. But it's the mix of all of it, not throwing out what's good about in-person care, and there's a lot that's good about it, but also not walking away from the benefits and convenience of online healthcare delivery. And consumers like that. It's clear. Finding a way that we can bridge the two of them and have that delivered in a new model, of healthcare delivery, for me is really exciting.
Carly, we've absolutely loved chatting with you about all things fresh health, longevity medicine, whole person care, and the future of the industry as it evolves. Before we wrap up, I just want to ask, what is something that you feel really proud of when you reflect on sort of like the direction of your clinic and as a healthcare practitioner? Yeah, what's something that you're proud of?
Probably the most thing I'm proud of when I think about bringing fresh health into my clinic is the comments and the joy I hear from my patients when they start to feel like themselves again.
We hear that often, but it is amazing. There's something that I came across last night on Instagram from one of our Fresh Health members, Kathy Wood, who we know and love, and I thought that this was really like quite amazing to read, and it resonates with a lot of what we've been talking about. Um, she said, for decades, women's health has been underserved and too often overlooked within mainstream medical care. This is now changing. In aesthetic medicine, the majority of our patients are women, yet historically, consultations have focused almost exclusively on external concerns, while the internal experiences shaping how women feel hormonally, emotionally, and physiologically were left unexplored. But a person is far more than what they look like. If our goal is to help patients truly feel their best, we cannot ignore how they are actually feeling. Integrating women's health consultations into my practice has been essential in bridging this gap, creating a model of care that recognizes women as whole individuals rather than isolated aesthetic concerns. At the heart of this shift is environment. Women need safe, comfortable spaces to discuss deeply personal symptoms and experiences, and trusted clinicians to open those conversations. Nurses are uniquely positioned to do this. Research consistently shows that patients are often more likely to disclose concerns to nurses than physicians, largely due to the more frequent, prolonged, and relational nature of nurse-patient interactions. Nurses are commonly perceived as approachable, empathetic, and focused on holistic care, which fosters trust and encourages patients to share their symptoms, feelings, and needs. By adopting a hybrid healthcare model where a nurse and doctor work synergistically within the same consultation pathway, we create the conditions for these long overdue conversations to occur. This collaborative approach allows patients to feel heard, supported, and understood while ensuring medical oversight and evidence based treatment planning. The impact has been profound. Anecdotally, did I say that right? Anecdotally, patients frequently tell us these conversations have changed their lives. Many express that for the first time they feel genuinely listened to. Through attentive listening, structured assessment, and coordinated clinical handover to a dedicated women's health doctor or nurse practitioner, we established the foundation for truly transformative care. The integration of women's health into my practice has transformed how we care for patients. It allows us to view each woman holistically, not simply from the décolletage upward, but as a complex, dynamic individual whose well-being extends far beyond appearance. This is the future of aesthetic medicine: hybrid, collaborative, and deeply human healthcare that supports women to look well, feel well, and live fully. I thought that was, I was like, that absolutely nailed it on the head. And I think, Carly, you've echoed a lot of that throughout this conversation, which has been amazing. JD, I'm actually going to wrap up with a question to you. From a Fresh Clinic's perspective, like, where do you see Fresh's role in supporting all of that as we sort of continue to evolve?
Yeah, well, that's a really wonderful, touching, powerful, true statement from Kathy, and it's been and it only emphasizes and supports the conversation that we've had today with Carly. We're in a privileged position to be supporting almost 2,000 nurses, just like Carly and Kathy, across Australia, and expanding rapidly in the US. The reason we have been able to grow and we're continuing to expand is our relentless focus on helping the clinician in the room deliver the care that is appropriate for that patient at that time, and scaling a model of care delivery that means these sorts of conversations can happen in rural and remote Australia, as well as they can happen in South of Sydney or West Melbourne or wherever you might be. We think that there is a huge area of care that is currently being underexplored by the status quo of medicine, and that is this consumer-led medicine. This consumer-led healthcare is currently being mostly controlled and managed by non-healthcare professionals. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but in our view, I think the more we can empower good clinicians to nail consumer healthcare and be in control of the consultation process and making sure that evidence-based decisions are being made for the right reasons, for us, that's a huge driver for us. So whatever we can do to help support that journey, to help that feeling that Kathy articulated so beautifully and that Carl has expressed today, to help other practitioners feel that, connect with that integrity and purpose in their work, and really help the people in their community to thrive and live better lives. For me, wow, what a motivating purpose that we have, what a humbling purpose that we have, and that's what our team wraps around. That's what we get really motivated about.
Carly, again, thank you so much for your time today. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for developing Fresh Health for all of us.
Yeah, no, thanks, Carly. We're so pleased to be able to support you, and well done on all the success you're having with the program.